Wow,
So-
OK. Well, that was a very unusual, unusual way to spend an hour on our programme, but it was the woman at the centre of all this stuff, and actually she, we were just talking about it, she's impressive in many ways. Did that interview damage or help Boris Johnson? Well, probably somewhere in between. I'm not sure she's harmed him, because she was so emphatic about some of the key areas. Obviously, if there's a paper trail that negates any of those, it's going to be different. But for now, I would say that was probably not, chaps, a damaging...
I'd like to know which Shakespearean sonnet they discussed most, her and Boris Johnson.
I agree, it didn't really harm him, but it didn't help him. And I thought you came across, actually watching it, it was absolutely riveting and compelling TV.
Yeah.
I thought you came across as slippery as a cold cod and very, very evasive. She said if she confirms or denies an affair, it will be weaponised. You can disarm the weapon by just saying
no.
No.
Sonia Purnell worked with Boris Johnson at The Telegraph and joins us now. And Tory leadership contender Rory Stewart, who is now Mayor of London contender. Aren't you, Rory? What did you make of that? This is someone who, was in the office that you want to occupy yourself.
From a personal point of view, I thought it was mesmerising watching, and I thought you did a very, very good job on the interview. I still haven't fully got my head around what she was saying. I mean, she seems very, very fond of him. And I guess the question is, was there a conflict of interest? I mean, I don't want to get into his personal
the key thing, if you were to be mayor, Boris didn't declare, we're told, any personal interest with this woman at any stage of this entire process. Do you just think that, given the way she talked about him, they're clearly very close. I mean, she bordered on saying I was in love with him. And she wouldn't deny an affair. Given that, was it incumbent on Boris to declare an interest?
Yeah, I think politicians should be very careful. We should be very careful to declare relationships.
Would you have done in that situation? I'm not suggesting for a moment you would have had an affair. I'm just saying, would you, though, if you had a relationship that close with somebody where they were getting money and grants, would you have felt compelled to declare it?
Yes. So, for example, when I was Secretary of State for International Development, I very carefully declared any relationships with anybody that was running a charity that could be a receipt of grants, yes.
So, in that sense, he has breached the rules. Has he potentially, if we assume that, has he committed a crime?
I think we need more details on paperwork. I mean, I simply don't feel qualified to judge that.
And we know that he is under obligation to produce, or has been asked to produce texts and communications for the Greater London Assembly for their inquiry tomorrow. I just wanted to ask, the friendship thing, I mean, does it make a difference if they were actually having a full-blown relationship? Do you also have to declare all your friendships in case they overshadow decisions that you're making?
Well, you're encouraged by the civil service to be as forthcoming as possible and to try to be very clear about when you've had long-standing friendships or relationships, simply to make sure that, I mean, the civil servants would say it's to protect you.
Yeah, to avoid the suggestion of a conflict is as important. Let me ask you quickly about being London Mayor. There's quite a scathing piece in the Telegraph today suggesting, well, why should we trust this guy? He's just bailed on his constituents and disappeared off when the going got rough. Why should we trust him now to be London Mayor?
Why, I haven't seen the Telegraph piece. I guess I love running things. I love operational work. I think as a politician, I really realise that the most satisfying thing in politics is doing things locally, and that in many ways I thought the kind of Parliament, being a minister, was just too detached.
What are the three things that you would prioritise as London Mayor?
Number one, safety. I think it's disgraceful how bad crime is getting, and I've seen it directly. Poplar, I turned up and saw somebody, quite literally, who'd been stabbed and bled to death in the streets. Air pollution. My two kids, I got two kids under 5 who were born in London, have grown up in London, and there's now research suggesting their lungs could be a third underdeveloped. And I guess the third thing, obviously, which has been true for 30, 40 years, is housing.
It's quite interesting, actually, to watch it. I sort of made a joke when I promoted you on here, saying that the stick being used to beat you is that you're a middle-aged white guy who had a good education.
You went to Eton.
It seems to me that this is a very strange attack weapon against you. It's not your fault that you're a middle-aged white guy, and you shouldn't be punished, in my view, for being well-educated. That doesn't seem to me to be a barrier to being London Mayor. Do you think that there's a sort of reverse stereotypical load of nonsense going on about you as a candidate, and that we're now supposedly so into diversity that someone like you can't even be allowed to run?
Well, I thought that was a strange line of questioning. I mean, I think we should be very proud that we had the first Muslim mayor. I think it's great there's such a diverse group of candidates. But I also think those candidates Sean Bailey, Sadiq Khan wouldn't want to be valued simply on their ethnicity. We want to be judged by our performance, and I'm standing because I think I could really get things done. I don't think people have made the most of the role of mayor.
Can you win as an independent?
Well, it would be a big, big thing to do. I've got no party machine behind me. I've got no big money behind me. I've got to build a whole volunteer base from scratch. But I think the time for independence is coming. I think people are fed up with the old party system. And I think I've got a good chance, yes.
OK.
Sonia Purnell, you worked with Boris Johnson at The Telegraph. He denies any impropriety. What questions does he have to answer after our interview with Jennifer Arcuri?
Well, in a way, there are more questions to answer now than ever. I think the fact that he said he had no interest to declare, well, I think at the very least, I mean, she wouldn't deny that they had an affair, but at the very least, it was clear they had an extremely close friendship. So I think we need to ask him, well, how can you say that you had no interest to declare? I think also we have to say, well, why did she get that money? I know that she was saying that the company is still based here, but reporters have tried to find it without any success. She herself is in LA, clearly. She changed the pictures on her Twitter feed from ones of LA to ones of Tower Bridge once these stories started appearing.
And also, I think
we need to know exactly
I agree.
why
And
that
I think,
money
Andrew, the other
transferred.
problem seems to me that none of these companies have made any money. In fact, they've all made losses.
They've lost £1 million.
So public money is being poured into businesses which aren't even making
and the key still goes back to this £10,000 that came out of an organisation that Boris was in charge of when he was London Mayor. Did he have any say in that money going to her? Because if he did, then he really is in trouble because he did not declare any interest.
So in a way, even though we asked about 1,000 questions, there's probably
still goes back to that
there's
one.
a lot more questions to come. And I think
and of course,
what is indisputable is she has now established they had at the very least a very, very close relationship, which he ought to have declared given this money. That, I think, could be problematic.
And did he get on that poll?
Well, it sounds like
chaps, we've got to leave it there.
Very interested in it.
Rory,
Andrew,
thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Rory,
Always good to see you.
Thank you very much.